anarchy.
Why do people commit crimes?
We have a crime and we have misdemeanor.
Do you think that drugs should be legalized?
This is different.
I stole cars and I beat a woman, something like that.
Would you trust them?
Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Big Apple School Podcast, where the goal of this show is to help you improve your English listening skills by listening to us. My name is Benjamin, and today we have 3 participants with us. Our first participant today is
Varya.
Second,
Katya.
and last but not least, we have
Ugur.
Welcome back, guys. So it's a nice chilly morning here in Novosibirsk. I believe it's minus 23. What's
And
new?
feels like, what does it feel like? Does it still feel like minus 23? Because the other day it felt like minus 32 when it was minus 23.
It was really cold. I think it was last week.
Saturday,
Yeah. And then it got a little bit warmer. By warmer, I mean like minus 17.
It's okay today.
Yeah,
Don't
that's
get used to
warm.
it. Don't get used to it.
Yeah.
To minus 17. It'll be gone before you know it.
Mhm.
But I love it. It's so romantic seeing the snowy white landscape. It's pretty cool.
Especially when you're inside and not
Yeah,
outside
as a
in
warm
this
in a-
white landscape.
But don't
Trying
you
to
have,
make your way home.
don't you have an expression, something on the lines of a Siberian is someone who dresses warm?
Yeah. We say like, actually it's for all those situations when people are like, are you cold? But you're from Russia. You cannot be cold. You're like, you know what? We have a saying that a Siberian or a northerner is not the one who doesn't get cold. It's the one who gets warmly dressed.
Mhm.
This is different.
It's different.
Yes.
Well, I say that. I do say that. You're Russian. You're supposed to be warm.
Nope.
But yeah, they're human too. So the skin and everything. Yeah.
So what else is new? I mean, we were talking before the podcast. You have your nails,
Yes,
freshly
my
painted
nails
nails.
are really important to me. It's
Yeah.
quite a treat. And
Yeah.
so I've got my sharp little nails. I can claw anybody if they come too close.
It's a form of self-care, you know,
Yes,
it's self-love.
yes, yes.
So if you make a mistake on the second conditional, Varya's gonna take her nails and scratch the blackboard.
Oh, I love that sound.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cool.
What's new with you, Benjamin?
What's new with me? Just busy working. Yeah.
Do you have the Christmas mood? Or New Year mood?
Actually, I don't really feel it just yet. It's gonna come soon. I bought
That's because you need to go and see the decorations, the beautiful decorations.
in the center of town. Oh yeah, for those of you who don't live in Novosibirsk, we have a wonderful a New Year's display in the center of a
Because
city.
we are the capital of New Year this year. On the 23rd and
There will be a
24th,
parade, I guess, right?
there will be a parade of
Mhm.
Ded Moroz.
Yes.
This.
What was that?
Well, you know how we don't have Santa Claus, but we have Father,
Father
Frost,
Frost.
and there'll be a parade of Father Frost,
Frost.
from different cities on the 23rd and the 24th. So it'll be
24, cool.
Do you like when they're dressed in blue or red?
I think red.
Really? I like the blue. 'Cause It's
Why?
frosty. And it's different
Frosty.
from American
Oh, you
red.
know, yeah. Actually, you know, that's, yeah.
And we have
That's
another option like Grinch green.
Ah.
Why not? Why not?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you to Amrit Sangita. He left a wonderful comment on YouTube for us. It was something on the line. It was in Russian, but it was on something on the lines of, it's great when people with different English levels can communicate. It makes me confident to speak and to not be afraid of making mistakes. Katya and Benjamin, I admire your pronunciation. Well, Amrit, thank you very much. And I'm really interested in your background. Are you living in Russia right now? Really interested. So let us know in the comments in English, or practice your English in the comments. And yeah, we'd love to hear from you. And it's great that you feel confident about not making mistakes. It's really important to, just put yourself out there and not worry about making mistakes.
Mhm.
Well, I know Varya's going to use her nails and... But don't
Well,
worry.
I always like to compare British with the American.
Yeah. Well, there are many differences. All right. And also, guys, I need to mention you can listen to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Yandex Podcasts, VK, and of course, you can get the video version on YouTube. And you also should think about joining our private Telegram chat where you can get access to the after show portion of this podcast, and you can see us in video format, and you can also get access to vocabulary lists, which will definitely help you with your English learning journey. And of course, you can communicate directly with us in the Telegram chat and practice your English writing skills and speak to one another. So, and also we want to welcome Anastasia, who signed up for the private Telegram chat. So welcome, Anastasia. Thank you for being part of the conversation. And do not be afraid to share your thoughts with us. So yeah, that's about it. So yeah, today we're going to talk about a really fun topic. I love this subject.
Very serious one.
Serious, but I actually think it's fun, especially if you love binge watching YouTube or Netflix.
I love it how Benjamin and a lot of other people have very different definitions of fun. Great weather, interesting, and so on. Go on, Benjamin.
Maybe I'm a little twisted. I don't know. Well, today we're going to talk about, what do you think?
What do you think? Well, we know exactly what we're going to talk about.
What are we going to talk about?
Crime, criminality, crime. So how do you define crime?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Anarchy.
The what?
Anarchy.
Well, crime has to be against the law. We have to set laws. And then if we don't meet those standards, it is a crime.
So yeah, a crime is an action that breaks a certain law. But then again, in this case, we have two terms because we have a crime and we have misdemeanor. Is it also
in America? Yeah, in America you have felonies and misdemeanors.
So these are degrees of seriousness of crimes.
But it's still a crime.
It's still a crime.
And Varya, what is considered a misdemeanor crime in America?
I think like if you were to steal something less than $100, that would be, and a felony would be something like a white collar crime, some kind of Ponzi scheme.
Well, there are many types of felony crimes. There could be murder.
Yeah.
It can be
Murder is a
anything.
felony.
Yeah, it is a felony crime. Yeah.
I thought that felony is somewhere, in the mid, like not
so serious.
Yeah.
Not so.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it's divided into misdemeanor crimes. In Russian, you have administrative crimes.
Yeah,
and you
that's
have,
what we call them. Yeah.
I guess you can translate heavy crimes. It's basically the same distinction.
Oh.
So misdemeanor crimes are things like jaywalking.
So I was going to ask, like, what about
petty theft?
Petty theft, or some misdemeanors can be stronger than others.
Okay.
But even something that's serious like animal abuse, there are some states that just say, well, that's just a misdemeanor.
Yes.
So, so it just depends state by state with that.
Of course, in America, you have the federal level and the state level, and it depends what crime you commit. For instance, I love airplanes, as you know. If you commit a crime on an airplane, that's a federal crime, not a state crime. Whereas if you commit a crime on the territory of a state, that's considered a state crime.
And then the criminals would be treated differently depending on the state
they'd
laws.
be considered differently. Plus, once they're sentenced, they're going to be going to a federal prison or a state prison.
Yes.
Or even we have privatized prisons where someone actually owns prisons.
Yeah, same in England. Yeah, we have that too.
At which people can make money off of criminals.
Yeah. We have a company.
idea.
There's a company called G4S.
It's quite controversial to have someone who makes money off of other people's crimes.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about something that breaks the law is a crime, but then there are things that are not on the law books yet, but some people would consider a crime, like domestic violence or something, something that has not met, hasn't gotten to an actual law.
Or not standardized in a way.
Right.
Yeah. Domestic violence, animal abuse.
Yes. I mean, I'm talking about like in the 60s and 70s. I mean, a lot of women did not speak out against their husbands because there's no law. A woman at this time could call the police and the police would come and say, well, we have no law. We can't arrest him. We can't do anything. So there are kind of, but then through activism, we could change laws.
Yeah, and the job of the police, of course, is to enforce the law. Enforce means to make sure that the laws are followed and to apply punishment if required.
Yeah, that's not the policeman's job. That would be the court's job.
Oh, of course, yeah. But I mean to detain. Excuse me, I should mean to detain someone, not to punish people.
Right.
Sorry, you're right. To detain people if required. So, what in Turkey? How do you have like a similar system to America, whereby you have misdemeanor crimes and felony crimes?
We have constitutional crimes. So if you are like doing something against the Constitution, it's the highest level of the crime that you have, and you need to be in a state that you have to take the constitutional law and courthouse. So it's kind of a life or like 60 or 70 years in prison. But misdemeanor, kind of like pickpocket, there's like a low degree kind of crime, but murder, of course, kind of felony. So same thing, like a similar thing.
Well, of course, there's so many different types of crimes, and some people might think one crime is not particularly heavy, or it's a petty crime.
Well, even the different levels of murder. We would have, first degree murder, second degree, third degree. Yeah, and that depends on if it's premeditated, if you really had a plan to do it.
Yeah, premeditated.
And that would be the highest. And then you'd have something where it was in the heat of the moment, the passion, and that'd be lesser degree.
Yeah, and I believe France has like a particularly relaxed stance on crimes of passion, for like what you just mentioned. If, let's say, a husband was cheating on a wife and
wife kills the husband.
Yeah, exactly. You would.
Isn't that the same as like crime in the state of effect? It's called.
Oh, I'm not sure. Under the influence of passion. That's alcohol usually.
Because there is a certain
effect. That sounds like alcohol.
So in Russian, for example, we have this sort of help me out with the term. So there is mitigating, some sort of conditions which make the punishment harder. What is the opposite to that? Something that makes the punishment less severe.
Well, mitigating circumstances.
Is that the...
That's what it is. Yeah.
Oh, mitigating is something that helps you to get...
So let's say if someone murders someone, but someone is told, I will kill you unless you murder this person.
Without an action, you mean?
Those are mitigating circumstances.
So because in Russian, we have this murder in the state of effect, or a crime in the state of effect, which means you were not acting, let's say, consciously. So meaning you were in shock, you didn't know what you were doing.
Under influence kind of thing.
But under influence of what? So in this case, you were not under influence of alcohol or drugs. Nothing like that. You were just in shock.
Oh, okay. So maybe like some kind of mental breakdown.
Oh, by the way, guys, I just need to mention I don't think any of us have a legal education.
No, we don't really have a legal.
So when we give our definitions, double check them on Google, because you have English and then you have legal English, which are two kind of different languages.
Different. And also laws change as well.
Yes. And definitions as well can change sometimes. Yeah. So you said you have constitution. So Turkey has a constitution that is written and
if you're against that, and you will be punished according to that.
Yeah.
For example, like burning the flag.
It is a crime in the US.
That's a crime in Turkey.
It's not a crime in the US to burn the flag.
Isn't it?
No.
It's a form of free speech to burn the flag.
It's not
in Russia, it's a crime, right?
Do not want to comment on
I'm not
that.
sure.
A lot of things are crime in Russia.
I want to comment on this because this was like, that was a really pushed during the Vietnam War was, can we burn the flag? Can we wear the flag as clothing? Because it used to be against the law to, if an American flag purposely or accidentally was dropped to the ground, if it touched the ground, you have to burn it out of a ceremony to show respect to the flag. Or you're not allowed, it was against the law to wear the American flag as clothing. It was against
as an underwear
the law.
Or something. Same in
underwear,
Turkey, you can
shirt,
wear the flag
anything.
as an
That's so
underwear.
funny. I have pajamas with the American flag.
But then the Vietnam War came with all of the riots and rebellion and anti-war, and this kind of thing changed it. Yeah. So there would be flag burning ceremonies.
So Turkey has a written constitution. Of course, Russia has a written, and of course, America. The UK does not have a written constitution.
Yeah, I mean that's just crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting.
Yeah.
It's just a big tapestry of many, many old laws. And I'm not 100% sure as to how it's structured, but it's really fascinating. It's this old historical structure. And sometimes people try to bring in, I think it's called the Bill of Rights. Maybe it does exist. I believe there is a Bill of Rights, or at least there is discussion about introducing it in the UK, but we don't have like an official written constitution. My opinion, I think it'd be a good idea to have a written constitution.
Well, you can't put everything in the Constitution. So then it's going to be up for debate and interpretation. So our founding fathers knew this. So they put very general things. And so, of course, as time changes and people change, conditions change, you have to interpret it or misinterpret it.
Yeah.
And do they still wear the wigs in courts?
I
love those
it's
wigs.
Very funny. Yes.
So actually, like in the movies and everything.
Barristers and judges. Yeah, they wear.
And what's up with all of those fighting in court? I mean, it is so crazy to watch the British in court fighting each other, or not in court, in the parliament, I should say, in the parliament.
Well, yeah, they don't normally physically fight.
Well, sometimes.
Well, I saw.
They laugh sarcastically to each other, I guess, right?
But we don't behave like that. Not in America.
But the House of Parliament is a very rowdy parliament.
Rowdy is a great word.
It is fun to watch, and
they insult
noisy.
each other. They get emotional. Yeah.
Yes.
And they boo and make noise.
Yes. Yeah, a lot of parliaments do have but some parliaments people get physical. It's really funny. Well, of course, you have the famous video of Zhirinovsky throwing water at people. That was so fun. Did you see that video?
I haven't seen Zhirinovsky pour water, but it sounds like something.
It's a famous video. He had a disagreement with another person and he threw water.
Yeah, it was probably over the retaking of Alaska.
Yeah, but that was funny. I guess he didn't hurt anyone with the water, but it was quite the scene. Yeah. So why do people commit crimes?
Oh, for many reasons. Out of, I do not know, out of spite, out of hatred. Some people do it out of, let's say when they have no choice. So let's say when a person steals because they have no money. To feed their family.
They're hungry. Yeah.
Out of addiction sometimes. So when people steal because they want a dose or something like that. There are so many reasons.
Well, this is a really big general question I'm about to throw down here. You spoke about addictions.
I mean, some people would do it because of their mental health. Mental illness maybe. Especially, if we look at the history of all those like serial killers and everything, they knew what they were doing, but why? This is a big question still. Like what was driving them?
And some of them wanted to be studied. Here, interview me and because they didn't even know why. But another reason is gangs. That would be part of their initiation, being part of it.
Yeah, gangs. Would you like to be part of a gang?
No, thank you.
No.
Well, humans have a tribal instinct. And I guess if you're at a young age and you have a gang in your local neighborhood, exactly, you want to belong.
And if you don't have a family because you're in some kind of abject poverty, your father's in prison and your mom's a prostitute, drug addict.
And you want to be a part of something.
Yeah, you need to have a family. And that's what they provide, this family feeling.
Well, I was going to ask, the big question I was going to throw down is, do you think that drugs should be legalized or made illegal? What do you think? Because they cause so many crimes, or addictions lead to many crimes. Do you think that it's better to follow the Portuguese approach, or do you think it's better to do the like kind of Asian approach, like Indonesia, where you can get the death penalty, I believe.
Yes.
Because it doesn't matter what the laws are going to be, the drugs are going to be there.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
I was going to ask you, what are your feelings about the way that they legalize some drugs in the US right now?
Yeah, I know. I'm a very liberal person, but when it comes to legalizing marijuana, I don't like the idea of someone lighting up a doobie and then their children having the contact, or plants or animals or a little birdie in a cage. I just don't like that idea. And so I just stay out of it. It's like, no, I don't want it legalized.
I'm on Instagram and I follow some of my former students from Wellesley. And it kind of concerns me a little bit that they post like, oh, how to find out if this is a good drug and how to help a person who has overdosed and everything. And not only about marijuana, but about meth, about fentanyl.
Fentanyl,
yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, this is such a big part of their culture now. Of this,
it's true. England and America, it's
like
huge.
Being an expert at something. Like I know how to come out of a high. This concoction, you do this, and this. It's just their culture, like you said.
This is scary.
So I know,
to be honest.
of course, Russia. Of course, you do have some drug addicts, but I think it's much more widespread in the West. Definitely England and America. We've many drug addicts in both our countries.
Because it's easier to get, I would say.
Yeah. And in Russia, like obviously they have stricter laws with regards to drugs. But do you think it's the laws that make it that make it harder for people to receive drugs, or do you think it's for different reasons?
It might be. I don't know.
Yeah.
But then you mentioned Portugal.
Well, Portugal has completely decriminalized all drugs, heroin, crack, everything. And this has been the case since the year 2000. And I believe, I don't know how they get the data for this, but I believe they saw a huge reduction in drug addiction. But I'm not sure if that is related to the decriminalization.
Right. So that's
drugs.
one extreme. And then we have our so-called war on drugs. And that has been, people are really against this thing that has not worked. So, what's the solution?
It's such a difficult solution because in California, of course, they take a more relaxed approach to drugs in general. And they've tried to follow the Portuguese model, but it's just not working at all.
I don't know about that because California has a huge, very strong prison system there.
Yeah.
They put in a lot more money in the prison system than the education at one point.
Yeah.
And so that's what's filling up our prisons are these kind of low-level drug things and maybe higher level too. And that's the controversies. Do we really want to fill up our prisons with these, low-level drug crimes? And that's where you say, well, let's just legalize it then. And I can really see that point.
I can understand it, and at one point I was definitely for it, but recently I've started thinking, it's just can't, I don't know.
What are you going to say?
You just can't allow that stuff to go around you. But how is the law morality or is the law something else?
We're touching, on very difficult subjects right now.
Things that are ancient that have been discussed, yes, for centuries and centuries. Yeah, is it the morality of it or the actual law? And that's why it's always controversial. That's always this debate over it. What should we do? And then we end up doing this or that.
Yeah. Well, in the Philippines, for instance, they take a really strict approach to the drugs. Like, I believe the president himself physically went and chased down the drug dealers. Yeah. And some people applaud him for it because it's really sad what happens in the Philippines with all these people dying from drug addictions.
You kind of never know what exactly is going to happen with this or that action. So let's say in Mexico, it is a crime to do drugs and everything. Yet, if we look back in history, Mexico was controlled by the drug cartels for a very, very long time. So,
well, you're speaking in past tense as though it's not going on today.
I just do not know whether it is so. I don't want to make any statements that are not true.
I'll say that it is.
Yeah,
it
the corruption in the government. Yeah.
Absolutely controlled by the cartels, yeah. And the cartels basically are the Mexican government. I've not been to Mexico, but I lived in Vegas and I knew a lot of people from Latin countries and they would talk about all the cartels and how they would just govern their whole lives. And and it's really sad, like what goes on over there. Yeah.
And I guess Thailand has just legalized the medical marijuana and recreational marijuana.
Thailand has, But I don't think they've legalized other drugs, have they?
No, only marijuana. Yeah.
And Turkey, does Turkey take a really strict approach to drugs?
Yeah, it's kind of forbidden to use, sell any kind of drug, but Turkey is like a geopolitical kind of pathway from Middle East to Europe. So it's a kind of runway of drugs in a way. So you can find anything you want, but if you get caught, all right, you get life in a way.
So what if you buy, I don't know, like a small bag of weed in Turkey? What would happen to you if the police stopped you?
Right. If you get caught, you need to pay fine and you can face a prison sentence like 6 months to 3 years.
Oh, so they're really strict in Turkey about it.
Yeah.
And do you feel it's a good thing to be strict, or do you think?
I guess so. Yeah. So if you have control on something, you can stop or reduce the negative effects related to that thing. So it can be kind of a restrictive thing, but of course you can get whatever you want anytime you want.
Yeah.
So you can do that way, but you take the risk, of course.
Yeah.
Another aspect of law is how it's dealt with poor people compared to rich people. And so in America, we will have people of color and poor people filling up the prisons much more than anyone who could buy their way out or have influence.
Yeah. It's pretty sad. Yeah. Well, let's move away from drugs. Let's move more towards alcohol, which is a drug. What do you think about drinking and driving? Because different countries have kind of different approaches to this. What is it in Russia, the alcohol drinking driving limit?
None. I mean, you're not allowed to drive under any influence. I mean, even because I know in the US you can have one portion of alcohol, be that one
Same
shot,
in Turkey,
one glass of wine in Russia.
Yeah, it's not measured by one shot. It's measured by the breathalyzer. Yeah. And I think 0.07 is the limit, and you can be arrested for.
Which I remember that I read that usually it means you can drink, let's say, a can of beer or a glass of wine.
0.5, yeah.
But it would depend on your body type and how you can absorb the. So you have to rely on the breathalyzer.
1 can of beer, 1 glass of wine.
In Russia, you cannot have any of that.
I heard that you can't even drink kvass, which contains like a tiny trace of alcohol.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you call it?
Breathalyzer.
Breathalyzer would show, some sort of.
Yeah. Which is this little thing. You have a straw and you put the straw into this machine and you blow for a certain amount of time. And then a little number comes up and tells you you're
clear to go.
And people who work in bars have to do this before they leave at night.
Customers
or in the day, whenever.
Honestly, I think that I don't know what the measures are in Russia if somebody is caught driving under influence, but I believe they should take away the driver's license and just put them into prison for some time. We have enormous amount of accidents because of that. Russia's horrifying amount of accidents. So,
I believe Russia's pretty strict with, by the way, for our listeners, it's called DUI. So like Cassie said, driving under the influence. Yeah, DUI. So I believe in Russia, they're quite strict with this, no? Like
depends on who's driving.
Well, I've known someone who was he was drinking and driving, and he had his license taken away from him, and he has to attend these courses like every.
But what is it like? What is it?
Months.
Driver license taken away if you kill a person while drunk driving?
Oh, then, but I think you would go to prison in Russia for that, wouldn't you?
Depends who you are. Again, yeah.
Well,
sometimes they're like, oh, we're still looking into it and trying to like deal with the crime. But no, the person is still outside driving.
Yeah. Well, speaking of driving, this is not a drink driving case, but this was a really sad case that I read about last year. Happened in Akademgorodok, which is here in Novosibirsk, or just outside of Novosibirsk. And there was this lady driving an SUV. And she stopped at a pedestrian crossing and to allow pedestrians to cross the road. And all of a sudden, this 5-year-old girl whizzed across the pedestrian crossing on a scooter. Like, in Russian, you say samakati, so scooter, not like the motorbike, but the
electrical one.
The electric scooter. And she whizzed past, and just as the car let some other pedestrians cross the road. She started to drive, started driving, and unfortunately she crushed this 5-year-old as she was really quickly whizzed past. And there was no way she could have seen this 5-year-old girl. And I'm not sure what happened to this poor driver. Well, forgetting the poor girl and her poor family, God bless them. But what do you think should happen to the driver? Would the driver be prosecuted for manslaughter? Or
well, in this case, it's kind of non-intentional.
Yeah,
so
it
would be the mitigating circumstances, But it's all on parents, really. You should teach your kid how to cross the road. Come on.
Yeah. Because I feel forgetting all the grief that the family has to go through and the poor little girl. Like, I feel really bad for that driver. Like that driver has that trauma on there.
Of course. It's like, with what makes me angry, let's say, there have been some situations when people committed suicide in the metro station. They just jump on the train.
Yeah.
And this is so selfish.
Yeah.
Because the driver has to live with that.
Yeah.
They're traumatized. The same over here, because I'm pretty sure she couldn't have seen her. So, but she's still the one now who's
to blame.
Who's being blamed.
Yeah, metro drivers. I follow this YouTube channel called Pro Metro. It's this Russian guy who talks about the Moscow metro and how to drive trains.
Sounds very Benjamin.
Well, speaking of harsh penalties toward drunk drivers, Japan has one of the most strenuous. The law, as I recall, was that if you are caught drunk driving, your driver's license is taken away for 10 years and you're put into prison for 10 years as well. Mm-hmm. And everyone knows it. And so it really has proved to be a deterrent because they just have very low. And of course, I'm speaking about the 80s, so I don't know what's going on the last 30 or 40 years.
Well, I know in some Asian countries, they make criminals wear like a sign around their neck and they go on local TV. And
what is that? Public humiliation or something? What is
I think it's a pretty good punishment.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of punishing people, prison systems, do you think that the Norway-Finland model of prisons is ridiculous, or do you think that it's good to give the prisoners some comfort?
That's a very
like
debatable
a resort, right?
issue, yeah. Because their prisons are better than our dorms.
Yeah, it really is like that.
It really is better. I lived in a dorm for 4 years. Trust me, I know what I'm talking about.
Because prison in America and England is bad. It's scary.
The same in Turkey.
I can imagine too. And and you can die in prison in England and America. Like, people will stab you and do stuff like that. In Russia, I think they have much more control over the prisons. Like
it's
I've
much
seen,
more dangerous place than people think.
Well, yeah, it is dangerous. But in Russia, like, they're very strict with the prisoners and they don't let them move around as much as they do.
They keep it in cells, I guess.
So
in cells,
like a dormitory.
We have a horrible system. So the thing is that, especially lately, so they would easily put, let's say, in a room which is 2 to 2 meters, so like 4 square meters, like 10 people, 15 people. You can't sit, you can't lie down.
Is that jail or is that prison?
Prison.
It's probably jail.
Probably, jail.
Because jail's before you go to court. Yeah,
and if you get out of jail, if you're lucky enough to get into prison and not die over there.
Because it's like that in America too, like where and England, like where you have. Well, England, I think you have.
But I mean, how much time would you spend in jail? Because in Russia, it could be months and months and months.
Before the court.
Same in America,
Same.
Yeah, America.
Depends on if you have money to get out on bail.
By the way, there's so many interesting channels on YouTube with people or ex-felons, ex-prisoners, discussing their time in prison in America. And I find it so fascinating. And it's like...
Do you think that the government should help ex-cons to assimilate back into society?
Yeah, that's the thing with rehabilitation rather than this harsh punishment on top of punishment of being allowed to be beaten up or raped in prison.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the crime. I mean, if you look at Florida, there's this pedophile colony where they keep all these pedophiles so that, because there's no way you can go back to normal society and get a normal job.
In Russia, there is, a problem. And I think it is the same in the US too. So when people spend time, let's say 10, 15 years, or let's say 10 years in prison, they come out, they do not know how the world works. Suddenly we have, all this like internet and smartphones and everything, and they cannot get a job. They cannot adapt. They cannot get, housing and everything because it's also, high competition. And sometimes what they do is they commit another crime to get back to prison because they have no other choice. They're like, I know how everything works there. Like, I know how to survive there. I know how everything is. But out there in the world, they're not needed anymore. So they have no choice. And who should deal with that? Should that be the government who has some sort of programs? What can be done? Because I guess
prisons have to be divided into rehabilitable people and people who are destined for the waste bin, who, unfortunately, that's how I think it should be. That's if Benjamin were a dictator, that's how he would run his country. I would have. So let's say if you were
light crimes and
let's say you're a stupid 16-year-old, you stole someone's car
and
maybe put you in a rehabilitation prison. But
if you're a raper,
if you're a rapist, it doesn't. I mean, especially if you if it was like if it was like a violent assault or rape or something, then maybe you should rot in prison. I know it sounds harsh, but
there are people who can be rehabilitated, and they should have the opportunity to get an education, get what they need, so that they can, when they get back out on the streets, they can be a productive member of society. But then those are ones who cannot be rehabilitated.
But just imagine if you're an employer, let's say of a small business, like if you saw a guy on someone's record, I stole cars and I beat a woman, something like that.
Would you trust them? No.
Would you trust them?
This is part of the program that when you are released to people who already know that you are an ex-felon. And then they kind of mentor you and guide you and know that you are like this, but things have changed now. And supposedly.
Would you?
Me? No, I would not employ that person.
No.
I kind of think it's a bit harsh, but
you don't have any guarantee that's going to happen again or not.
Right.
Maybe the solution is like old school British workhouses. Like, but seriously, I mean, like maybe the government needs to make workhouses so they can produce clothing for poor people and force people who commit crimes to work there. I don't know. Maybe it sounds a bit harsh, but like these criminals, when they get back on the streets, they're going to have to, I mean, I'm generalizing massively, but usually people have to go and steal again. And it's just an endless cycle. So you might as well put these people to use. And I know it sounds harsh and kind of like a dictator, but...
Well, right, because that can lead to a lot of corruption and a lot of abuse and a lot of unusual punishment.
Because we live in a messy world. We really do.
We do, yeah. There's not black and white.
And I want to provide like utopian solutions.
There's all sorts of ideas, but to actually put forth into practice is something else.
Yeah, exactly. So the Portuguese model of decriminalizing drugs sounds nice, but I'm not sure it's going to work for every country.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Maybe for smaller societies where like everyone knows each other in a small community. But for big countries like America or even the UK, which is a big
population,
it's an island, but it's still a big country for big population, or Turkey, I'm not sure these nice policies that they have in Finland or Norway would work. Those societies are tiny. They're like 4 million people or something like that. And maybe
it's more government subsidized up there anyway. So people are used to their lives being part of the government, whereby the other Western countries are always...
They are, but they can also see more, well, I'm generalizing, of course, but they can see more accountability for their governments because they have a smaller society and they can see where their money's going.
Okay, so it's more transparent.
It's more transparent, exactly. So it probably works more efficiently there. Whereas like in the UK, like money would just go...
and you don't know where
you don't know, or in America, what's the population? 360
something like
million,
that.
something huge, probably more. And it's kind of hard to manage such a big society. So we kind of need these kind of old school draconian measures to keep society under control, I guess. Unless we want to become like an old Italian society, like where you have many different principalities, where Italy has well, Italy was made up of many city principalities. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon.
Well, part of keeping people under control is fear. So you can put them, you can put religion on them, the fear of God, the fear of hell.
Well, I don't know, maybe religion. Maybe we need Jesus. I don't know.
No, you know what? It doesn't work. So, our current president in Turkey is kind of a religious guy. But I can say he is
But Turkey's a secular society.
Secular society, but he wants to rule the country like a Middle Eastern country, like a religiously controlled.
Religion is not always the answer. Look at Afghanistan.
Yeah, you're right. But Afghanistan does have a geographical factor to take into account, and also many different countries have pillaged the country. And
so the president of Turkey right now thinks himself that he is the most religious person in Turkey, but I don't know.
And so he's the leader. Everyone should follow his.
Yeah, but okay, I'm in Russia. It's okay. He is also stealing, so he's stealing the taxes and everything.
Religion.
So so where is the religion? And he advised people, all right, follow the religion, but come on.
Well, that's what the thing is. You have the person at the top controlling the people at the bottom with this thing with called religion. And you can control people. They will behave. The dictator or the leader will not.
Exactly. So doesn't work. Religion. I don't know.
Well, let us know in the comments, guys. There's so many different examples. Such a complicated question because, there's so many different factors to take into account. So let us know what you think. Let's think about one other thing. Death penalty for crimes. What do you think about death penalty?
Child abuse, definitely. I support. For the ones who abuse the child.
I have to say, if you can conclusively prove
but
someone's guilt,
where it gets difficult and challenging. Like, how can you be 100% sure that the person who's standing in front of you is the one who committed the crime?
That's the problem. And it costs millions and millions of dollars, at least in America, to prove that someone is guilty of.
Actually, this is one of the points against the death penalty, is that actually it costs taxpayers way more money than keeping somebody in prison for life.
Exactly. And also, if you keep someone in prison for life, that's probably a worse sentence than death.
Yeah.
If it were cheaper, would you be for the death penalty?
Well, there are some points, to consider. So let's say some people say, it gives closure to the victim's family, knowing that the criminal is no longer alive. But at the same time, doesn't that support the eye for eye revenge mentality, which is something that we try to get away from?
It's retribution.
It's a very debatable topic. But correct me if I'm wrong, but in some of the U.S. states, death penalty is still legal.
It is,
like
Florida.
It is divided by the states. Yes.
Yeah, many states are still
unless
legal.
it's a capital punishment, which by the federal government they can put someone to death. The problem with us in the United States is we're supposed to be like a beacon of civilization, beacon of leadership, and we've got the death penalty, unlike the UK, right? Europe.
Yeah, the UK doesn't have it. Well, Russia has a moratorium, I believe. On death penalty.
And we'll go on moratoriums because Europe will not sell us all the chemicals for the lethal injections.
Yeah.
So there are times that people will just have to have their execution stay.
I don't understand the lethal injection. Why can't they just use a shotgun?
Oh, it's so much better.
I don't understand.
Oh, line them up. Yeah, line up the shooters and there you go. So much better. That's how I want to go.
Yeah.
Hanging is
quick.
Oh,
no. It is not. No. That's a horrible way. Oh, you could do it wrong and then you get hanged. Haven't you seen those Nazi old movies of the Nuremberg trials where those Nazis? Yeah. And then they get hanged and then And then they're like, oh, I'm still alive. And then they have to climb back up on the platform and do it over again.
Yeah, it's messy.
Yeah, horrible.
Same to lethal injection. It can be
but the
messy.
worst, I mean, what do you want to do? Electric chair or the gas chamber? Those are horrible.
Those are weird.
Electric chair is weird.
Why don't they just have a shooting
That is so much.
range
In
anyway?
China, they do.
Well, no, but I'm talking about the US.
Well, for one thing, it's considered a respectable way of dying. And it's something like you do with the military, like a military person.
Yeah.
And I guess for some reason, people think it's, I don't know, too archaic or too
Barbaric.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's
But at the same time, doesn't that violate the Bill of Rights and the Constitution that gives you a right for life?
the right for life.
Well, it's like it's like a right for life. Like everyone has the right to live.
But if you hurt someone else, then you don't have the right to live.
Huh. So it's a tricky.
Okay, so you're talking about arguments against the death penalty or for it? Which one?
Against.
Against
So
having the
let's
death
say-
penalty. Another argument for against it is that it's not a deterrent. It doesn't serve as a deterrent. It's shown that even if you know that you're going to go to the gas chamber, you'll still do the crime if that's what you want to do. So it's not a deterrent.
So
And then that mistaken identity, it could possibly not be you. It could be uncovered that 10 or 20 years after the execution, they say, oh, he was completely not guilty. He was innocent.
because technically, if you think about it, death penalty, people would think, yeah, if I'm caught, if.
Right.
So what is
Yeah,
it? It's
yeah.
fast. I'll go fast.
Yeah, they
I'll not
think,
even know.
yeah.
But let's say 50 years in prison
In death row,
without a chance.
But
get
some
out.
people are on death row for 20 years
Yes.
waiting and appealing.
Oh, that is
And that's
torture.
expensive. That's very expensive.
God, there's so many questions. This podcast could be huge. It can literally go on for hours. Like, there's so many interesting questions that are so many rabbit holes to go down. Yeah, maybe we might have to.
Have part 2.
Yeah, maybe. Well, let's wrap it up. What if you could pass one law that everyone would have to follow? What would that law be?
Yeah,
Be respectful to people.
Be respectful to people. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just the simplest thing,
And then you have to debate what's respect.
Yeah, that's all right. That's just general rules of the society. Follow them. That's it. Be kind, be respectful.
If we are
Be
in
good,
Russia,
sorry.
I think I would criminalize animal abuse and domestic violence.
That's what I would.
I believe
I
it
would
is
vote for that.
criminalized. No, they must have
Okay,
laws against criminalizing.
they have a lot. Nobody cares. I have
About both of them.
both
Or
of them.
both of oh my.
Well, domestic violence was decriminalized a couple of years ago, so it's no longer a crime.
And it's all about de jure, which is on the books, and what is actually happening de facto, what really happens.
About
and what's on the books.
Because I have, let's say, a situation, a girl, so it's like a friend of a friend. She was in a supermarket just holding her dog, a little dog. An elderly woman comes with a bottle and just hits her dog on the head.
Oh
It's
dear.
all on
my.
camera. There was CCTV footage. So, and of course the girl, she goes to the police and everything, and they open a case. But then she calls like, so how's it going? They're like, oh, we closed the case. We don't have enough evidence. Or
we
like,
don't have enough evidence.
like it's not even a crime.
Yeah.
She's like, I have all the details from like the vet's office. You have the CCTV footage, which is like, I have the CCTV footage. They're like, it's not really a
medical report for dog.
yeah,
maybe,
and
huh?
they're like, it's not really a crime. Nobody died. She's like, wow. So this is how it's done in Russia.
Well, my crime would be my law would be if you commit a mistake with the second conditional.
English school, prison.
I will sentence you to some nasty prison in the middle of nowhere.
Grammar dictator.
Yeah, grammar dictatorship.
Nazi.
Grammar
Yeah,
Nazi.
yeah, it is actually a term.
Okay, I'd like to work in that prison.
So every day you start with 3 questions in second conditional, and then you move to the third conditional.
Wrap, some kind of like ruler.
Top one.
Don't get me
Mix
started on the
Yeah,
mixed
yeah.
conditional.
Yeah.
Scratching the
If I were the dictator of Benjaministan, I would execute offenders
for not using articles, leaving out A's, uns, and thes.
Yes.
And S's.
Oh my god, that's how you
Yes.
find out about the dark side of people. Okay, all
So
right.
funny because we were speaking about not making mistakes on many podcasts and
but
trying
that's
to
just all a
encourage
facade.
people.
That's just a
Benjamin.
facade. We don't mean that.
Oh, Benjamin.
Just because of you.
I'm joking. Make your mistakes. Go on. Make your mistakes.
If you dare.
Yeah. But in grammar, of course, not in life general, right?
Yeah,
No,
be
you-
good.
Don't ruin your life, guys, after listening to us.
You know
right?
that the book Les Miserables.
Yeah.
Are you a law breaker or a law abider? That's my British accent. A law breaker or a law abider?
Very good.
Coming from Judas Priest, breaking the law, right? The next song is that one. That would be great. Why not? Yeah.
Well, guys, if you don't check out our website, you will go to prison.
Oh.
So our website is www.BigAppleSchool.com, where you can check out cool articles, more podcasts, videos, all other sorts of stuff. And like I said before, be sure to join our Telegram chat, our private Telegram chat, where you can speak to us and you can get access to the after show portion of this podcast, which we will be doing very soon.
And we will check your IP addresses. Yeah?
Of course.
We are serious.
And of course, we will be providing a vocabulary list so you can see which words we use in this show so you can improve your English skills. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Share your comments or go to jail. And we'll see you next time.
See ya.
See ya.
Bye for now.